Hey everyone, it's been a while. So with the next two Avengers movies having been stated as the new beginning for Marvel, I've had a lot of thoughts lately for what I want for the future, and now all of those thoughts have combined into what I want for the next saga of the MCU. So we're not starting with Phase 7, but we're going to start with all new or different Phase 1. I know that's a scary and polarizing name, but it's fitting for this new era of Marvel. There won't be a lot of jumping back to the previous phases, as we will be recasting a lot of the main characters, while some will also stay. So everything that's happened in the MCU will remain, given it's more of a reset, not a reboot. But from here, we're moving on with a clear vision for what we want to do. However, we do have some things and rules to keep in mind for this. Firstly, I won't be including anything outside of the MCU, like X-Men 97 or Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, as they don't really have anything to do with this universe, so just slot them in where you like. Now secondly, actors do age. In this reset, majority of the characters will have to be recast. If this is a new beginning for Marvel, many of the main characters will have to be either recast due to age or for the sake of the story. But I'll explain that just in a sec, bear with me. Let's also just say that we've managed to lock Tom Holland down for a lot more movies because Disney just pays well. And thirdly, we need to be realistic with the budget and actors' schedules, along with character rights with different companies and all that kind of crap. And as much as I would want something like an X-Men Krakoa era for a TV show many years down the line, it's just not gonna happen. So now with those rules set in stone, let's assume we know what happens in Secret Wars and use that as a jumping off point for this new saga. After defeating the god Emperor Doom and taking the power of Loki, Reed and Franklin recreates the multiverse and then forfeits his power for the good of mankind. But right before he does that, he makes sure nobody remembers Battleworld, including himself and Franklin. This is to give humanity a fresh start, and it also solidifies his character as he's always been torn between fixing everything, and with such power he can be a god and fix everything, but his family grounds him and keeps his ego in check. Next is that Peter gets his black suit. I think it would be a massive missed opportunity not to give him the suit considering his first appearance was in the first Secret Wars event, and so he's going to enter his next movie with that black suit. Now T'Challa will be recast as an alternate version appears in Secret Wars, and he will become the mainline Black Panther going forward. I understand this may be controversial, but I don't want to not be able to use a character due to those tragic events. I know there's the whole T'Challa Jr. kind of thing, and personally I don't like that. I don't want Shuri to be the aunt, I don't want anything like that. I want T'Challa proper. Now this is a big one about Doctor Doom and his whole thing with the Secret Wars and the Tony Stark kind of thing. So he's going to be from the Fantastic Four's Earth, the original Earth that they're from, and he body swapped himself with a version of Tony Stark, and the real actor is revealed when they swap bodies back in Secret Wars. I could see marketing playing with the idea that they cast a big enough actor to play an unnamed character, which gets people guessing to who it could be, only for it to be revealed that it's Tony Stark in Victor's body. When they swap back, that Tony will either die or he's going to go back to whatever Earth he originated from. Because I don't want to use RDJ as Tony Stark anymore and going forward, along with the new Doom actor who will be the actual Doctor Doom going forward. Similar to Chris Evans as Captain America, both that Tony and that Cap, they're both going to get a proper and last send-off this time around. But as for Thor, he will go into the next phase and we won't recast him just yet. Oh, and also, the Maker will be teased as a survivor from his Earth and has landed somewhere in this new MCU. We don't have to explain anything about him, just maybe see his helmet or a stretchy man in a dark blue or black suit kind of do something. Just a small tease for what's going to come. So the only people going forward from Secret Wars will be Spider-Man, Thor, Fantastic Four, body swap to Doctor Doom, the Defenders, and maybe Doctor Strange, depending on if Benedict Cumberbatch wants to sign on for about 5 more projects. So, with all that housekeeping out of the way, let's begin with the first project of our all new or different Phase 1 of the MCU. Daredevil Born Again, Season 4. I know it's kinda weird hearing Season 4 when Season 2 at the time of recording this video hasn't even come out yet, but we're gonna have to jump ahead after Secret Wars and time travel a little bit, so bear with me. Now with Season 3 reportedly being filmed in March 2026, we can assume Season 3 will release in 2027, when they also begin filming for a 2028 release date for Season 4. And because I would be an absolute fool to scrap Daredevil and Charlie Cox and all of that, I would just let the showrunners do whatever they have planned. According to executive producer Sana Amanat, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, they'll be going back to basics but also going to places they haven't gone before. So assuming Foggy is alive somehow, that could mean we're getting Nelson, Murdock and Page. But before we go any further, we kind of need to do what we did for Secret Wars and assume everything as if it's been released already. Also, let's pretend that Daredevil is in Brand New Day and they team up at some point in the movie. So I would imagine the whole Fisk's Mare storyline would have wrapped up by now. There's been leaks and rumors that Elektra will be coming back for either season 2 or 3. And based on that, I'm gonna assume that the overarching story going forward will be about the Hand and whatever plans they have going on, but only time will tell. Now we can move on to the actual beginning of this MCU. But before we do that, my idea for this new era is that it will be built on 4 pillars: mutants, street level, supernatural, and cosmic. These 4 pillars will all follow a storyline and at times cross over with one another for events, but I want this universe to feel alive. Stories of love, war, death, and family are all happening all over the universe. And in my opinion, there doesn't really need to be another huge endgame-like event. We shouldn't have to chase something like that to achieve great stories and box office hits. Now, before you get angry, that's not to say there isn't a vision planned or things won't cross over, because they definitely will, and I have a lot of plans to where all of this will go. Think of it like each pillar will get its own kind of endgame thing, if that gets you more excited. So now, beginning with the pillar I am most excited for, the mutants. Starting with Uncanny X-Men. Filming is expected to begin late 2026 or early 2027, which leads to an early to mid 2028 release, and this will serve as the beginning of the X-Men saga. There's been a lot of discussions as to how the mutants will start showing up, and I haven't seen Miss Marvel, but I've heard she's a mutant, and the mutant gene is already in the MCU. I don't know, but like I said, I haven't seen it. So you know what, let's just do that. The mutant gene is here. Simple enough. Deal with it. However, in the present era, there has been an increase of mutants popping up everywhere, which will lead to Damage Control to develop the Sentinel program with the help of Bolivar Trask. We can also say mutants, or just Magneto, age slowly, which is how he was alive during World War II. But the Uncanny X-Men is not going to be an origin movie. They've been around for a little bit. Imagine a Raimi-style opening credits that shows the history of the X-Men, their formation, some battles, early members, Jean and Scott getting together. I think it would be a really cool and quick way to show the brief history of the X-Men. In my opinion, we've seen their origin and formation too many times in movies, so it's best that we skip a couple of years later. Charles Xavier is the principal at his school for gifted youngsters, and he's created the X-Men, which will be Cyclops, the leader and commander on the battlefield. Jean Grey, the team's telepath. Storm, the other leader of the group and heavy hitter. It's about time we see her Omega level abilities on screen. Gambit, the agile thief and smartass of the group. Nightcrawler, the spiritual and most compassionate person that everyone can speak to. Colossus, the tank and gentle giant of the group. And Kitty Pryde, the newcomer but experienced one, and our eyes into this already established X-Men, while Professor X and Beast mostly stay back in the mansion. That is my ideal team, and I think it would work best since those characters are established in terms of mainstream audience. The MCU loves their synergy, and between 97 and Rivals, this can work. But just because that is the current team at the time, it does not mean that they're the only mutants around. Because this isn't an origin, this team will have various members appearing, such as Angel, Jubilee, Iceman, Magic, and way more. I want scenes with big characters from the X-Men roster that are just passing by in a hallway as if they're late to class. I want the school to feel alive and that the current X-Men aren't the only superhero mutants running around. It's also important to show the dynamics of every member in this team. Cyclops' tactical mind has been known to rival Captain America, and we need to see that. The sisterly relationship between Storm and Jean, along with Jean and Scott's relationship. And I think we can get away with 7 members, considering how popular the X-Men have been over the years. Now, the plot of this movie will set the stage for how humans treat mutants. Some support them while some hate them. And this is a core pillar for X-Men and mutants in general, and I believe it's important to establish this as soon as possible. Which is why I haven't started with Mr. Sinister or Magneto just yet. As I mentioned before, Damage Control and Bolivar Trask will ally with each other, and this creates the Sentinel program. In the end, the X-Men defeat the Sentinels and convince the public that Damage Control does more harm than good, and they will gain more support after this win, but there will still be some animosity towards mutants. However, it's more leaning towards the positive side. For the credits scene, we see a man on a motorbike arrive at the mansion. This will be Logan, as he will have a huge role in the next movie. However, we won't have to wait that long to see him, as the next project is Wolverine. Yes, a Disney Plus show for Wolverine himself. Remember that great opening in X-Men Origins that everyone thought was actually going to be the movie? Yeah, I want that. Before we see him in the next X-Men movie, I'd like to have an anthology series where we see Logan all throughout history, given his healing factor and aging abilities. Do we need this? Not really. We've basically seen versions of this in other movies. But would it be cool as hell? Absolutely. but most importantly, it can give the audience a good demonstration on the new Wolverine actor. And good luck to whoever that man is, it's a tough name to live up to, along with all the other superheroes that will be eventually recast. And because it's a TV show, we'd have to assume the actor cast as Wolverine is either an unknown or someone who is cheap enough to appear both on the small screen and the big screen. And because a lot of the X-Men characters won't be getting solo projects, they can jump around a lot in other movies and TV shows. In this 6-episode miniseries, we will follow Logan at many different points in his life, while also planting seeds as to what his role in the second movie will be. Each episode will have a title card at the beginning, with 2 episodes dropping weekly, as this show will have 2 episode arcs. Episode 1, Canada 1880. Episode 2, France 1916. Episode 3, Poland 1942. Episode 4, Japan 1946. Episode 5, Madripoor 1963. And Episode 6, North America 1980. This miniseries will have many different heroes and villains from all these different time periods, such as Captain America in the World War II episode. However, we'll only see the back of him and silhouettes, as I don't want to cast the actor just yet. But the main focus of this series is going to be his brutal rivalry with Sabretooth all across history. From when Sabretooth decides to make Logan his new plaything and terrorize him, all the way to Team X and the Weapon X program, where Logan loses fragments of his memories. Let me know if you guys want to see a full video on what I want, as I have so many different notes for what I want this show to be. I just can't include them here because it'll make the video like 15 minutes longer. Now let's take a break from the mutants and revisit a team we have seen before. I'm talking about the sequel movie of the Fantastic Four. Also, for most of these movie titles I'm unsure of, so feel free to share what you would like for sequel names. Now, I went back and forth as to what movie I want to be the starter for this new era. X-Men makes sense because it's what people want to see most, but for the sake of the universe, it would make sense to have the Fantastic Four sequel as our entry point into this new saga, due to what happened in Secret Wars and the state of the universe after it. But X-Men are cooler, so they go first. But it's interesting because I want a lot of the aesthetic from the previous Fantastic Four movie to remain present in these movies and the universe as a whole. Mainly the architecture, and if Reed and Franklin are the ones recreating this new universe, it would make sense that they would base it off their original Earth. Another thing I'd like to do is at the end of this movie, have Sue fall pregnant again, planting seeds, quite literally, for Valeria in the next movie. I don't want to go through the whole pregnancy thing again, but man, I really want Valeria in these movies. I honestly like her more than Franklin, and I really hope they don't just combine both of those characters together. It would be a big disservice to both characters. But besides that, I don't really have that many notes on what I want this movie to be besides the antagonist, which will be none other than the Super Skrull and a small scale Skrull invasion. Maybe the Fantastic Four are exploring the universe and they find them out there rather than on Earth. Really emphasize the whole scientific explorers rather than just common superheroes. On to the next project, we have another Disney Plus show, Heroes for Hire. I have no doubts Luke Cage will be back in Daredevil Born Again Season 2, and I'm sure Danny Rand won't be too far behind. I also hope in Season 2 it's revealed that Jessica and Luke are married, so we see Jessica also in this show as a side character. I think having them as a married couple rather than a will they won't they will add another dynamic we haven't seen in the characters while also progressing them in a natural way. Now, I want this season to be more of a case of the week kind of thing, showcasing various criminals that the duo have to fight for the clients, as the core of the show is the relationship and development of the 3 characters, rather than an overarching story with plot twists and hype moments. So in the next project, we are now going in the complete opposite direction and into the depths of space. The project I'm most excited for in this imaginary slate of shows and movies, it's Nova. I'm also sure we are going to get this in real life. He's such an awesome character, ripe with potential, and it would be foolish of Marvel not to use him sooner rather than later. Now, this might be a controversial pick as what I want the story to be, given every time I read something about what people would want to see for the future of Marvel, they want this to be a big build-up crossover event, but I want this movie to essentially be Annihilation. Now, before you start typing, listen, the Annihilation wave is not a build-up. There isn't really any seeds planted, and Annihilus isn't teased that much in the way a Thanos would be teased, like Infinity War. But in the comics, the Annihilation wave just happens. It wipes out Xandar, leaving Richard Rider the sole survivor and only hope for the Nova Corps. The sudden defeat and absolute destruction really sets the stage for this kind of enemy. So for the first act of the movie, it's a perfect way to show the origin of Nova as he tries controlling his powers with the Xandarian world mind helping him through it. If casted correctly, I can see Nova being a character people love, kind of like Star-Lord but in a different way. And his relationship with the world mind can be really fun and engaging. But after the first act, the battle can begin and so can the core part of the movie. It's a war movie. Survivors are on the back foot trying everything they can to fend off the unstoppable wave. And much like a war movie, there isn't really a specific mustache twirling bad guy. It's the German army or whatever political force the protagonist is up against. And this fits perfectly with Annihilation, as he doesn't really have that much of a personality, not to the point where he can be a huge villain like Loki, Doom, or Thanos. And the core of the movie is about these survivors doing everything they can to stop the Annihilation wave, the bonds they make and the struggles they go through. So pretty much just follow the core story from the comic, which will be important to set up the cosmic landscape with Ronan and the Kree, the disgraced Super Skrull who lost to the Fantastic Four in the previous movie, Quasar, Star-Lord, who I'm unsure if they'll recast or not, Silver Surfer, and Galactus. And speaking of the Silver Surfer, I wouldn't mind if they just kept Shala Bal. She was cool and people seem to like her, and it makes sense because this can be a continuation from the first Fantastic Four movie and where the Silver Surfer and Galactus ended up, because it explains how Annihilus has managed to capture Galactus after his defeat and is using him as a battery for his power. But the change I will make is at the end of the movie, after Annihilus dies, we cut to the negative zone instead of somewhere in space where we see the egg of Annihilus being reborn again. After Nova, we come back down to Earth, but not to New York City, not even to America. We find ourselves in Latveria with a Disney Plus show of Victor Von Doom's origin. Despite what happens in Doomsday and Secret Wars, I want to rectify the character of Doom as soon as possible, using the actor who switched his body back with the RDJ Doom. However, we only see him a few times in this series. This limited series will basically be a play-by-play of the Books of Doom comic, while cutting back and forth with the modern day Doom being interviewed and the Doom in the past going through his journey. This can also establish the political climate of Latveria as a key player in the world's geopolitical spectrum, and also seeing Doom as a ruler of a country. Now after Doom, we have the long-awaited sequel to Ryan Coogler's Black Panther movie. I've heard rumors of it being called Shadows of Wakanda, starring Denzel Washington, so I'm just gonna let Coogler do whatever he wants to do. There will be a new T'Challa after Secret Wars that he can use now, but besides that, I don't really have any notes besides the ending or the credit scene. I would like to set up the intergalactic empire of Wakanda. I don't really have any idea where to take Black Panther or Wakanda, so it might be really cool to see them in space. Seeing a thriving empire that kinda represents Earth in the cosmic scale and political climate might be a really cool idea, and I have some thoughts on where it could go. Next up, Blade. Ah, Blade, what has happened to you? It's very unfortunate that we've had to move on from Mahershala Ali, considering by the time this movie begins filming, he's going to be around 55 years old. I wouldn't want to do that to him. Now, there have been so many reports on what this movie was actually going to be, and I've decided to just keep it simple and go with the Raid John Wick style action movie of Blade killing vampires. No need to overcomplicate it. All this movie needs to do is reintroduce the character of Blade, what's he about, and what drives him. All I ask is refrain from using Dracula or Mephisto as the antagonist. They can be mentioned by name or even have a Dormammu-like presence or cameo, but nothing else. Now what's going to be surprising is I am not going to have an end credit scene or any scene in the movie about a Midnight Suns setup. Spoilers, we will get a Midnight Suns movie, just not set up in the traditional way. Now after Blade, quickly moving to Daredevil Born Again Season 5, I just hope we get this many seasons. Also, I'd like Tombstone to have some kind of presence in New York City, as now, based off the rumors for Brand New Day, it seems he's going to have a role to play in the next Spider-Man trilogy, but besides that, that's all I got for Season 5. But speaking of Spider-Man, we now have the big one, the easy moneymaker of this phase, Spider-Man Kraven's Last Day. Peter now has the black suit after the events of Secret Wars and is using it to help him fight crime throughout New York City. As you can tell from the title, I would like to adapt a lot of story elements from Kraven's Last Hunt into this movie, with Spider-Man becoming more violent over the course of the movie and almost killing Kraven. But hold up, I just got word from John Sony that a Spider-Man movie wouldn't be the same if there's not another superhero in it, so we're gonna have to force another superhero in it. But it's alright, we can work with it, because I think it would be the perfect time to establish the relationship between Spider-Man and Johnny Storm. In the comics, they have such a strong friendship, and now that the Fantastic Four can finally interact with the people of the MCU, let's waste no time exploring that. And after seeing how lonely Peter is in Brand New Day, I think this might be the perfect step for his character and gain a feeling of belonging. Let's see Spider-Man go to the Baxter Building and hang out with Johnny, without showing the other three members, they can be busy doing other stuff. But I'd like to see interaction between Franklin and Spider-Man in some capacity, with Spider-Man being Franklin's favorite superhero, and even have him comment on Spider-Man's black suit and how he misses the classic red and blue, because this movie is also going to focus on the relationship between Peter and the symbiote. For the first time ever, he's keeping it for the whole movie, because I want to see that relationship spiral and grow. I want to see how Peter becomes more vicious over time. At the end, Peter almost beats Kraven to death, with Johnny having to step in and call him out for his brutality. And Peter can actually snap back at his friend, also calling him out for how irresponsible he is and that he needs to grow up, something Peter would never say in such a hostile manner. So this movie is not going to have a happy ending, but instead have the symbiote make Peter distance himself from everybody. I have so many ideas where this can go, but for the credits scene for this movie, we need to set up Oscorp and Norman Osborn as a key player in the New York City landscape. Now wrapping this phase up with the last project, we have a Disney Plus show for Ghost Rider. Now my knowledge for Ghost Rider is quite limited, but this is crucial to A, set up the members for the eventual Midnight Suns movie, and B, dive deeper into the mystical and horror elements of the Marvel Universe. We follow Johnny Blaze as he's just become Ghost Rider and is still learning the ropes of being this entity, and I would like Blackheart to be the villain solely due to his direct connection to Mephisto, and so this is used as more of a setup for Midnight Suns and understanding the landscape within this horror side of Marvel. And that'll do it. So, like I mentioned, it's been a while since my last video that absolutely bombed, something I'm disappointed in considering based on some rumors, a theory or two of mine have turned out to be correct. But we don't cry over the past, instead we look forward and onto new projects, which is what I wanted to ask you guys. What videos would you like to see? I have a few in the works, including some videos that aren't even comic related, but if you guys have anything you want to see or want to know my opinions about, drop it in the comments below. I love engaging with you guys, whether it's in video form or answering it in the comments. I should be back on track soon, so I just want to say thank you for sticking around, and if you're new here, then stay tuned for more to come soon. As always, thanks for watching.